All right, you guys, welcome to our Gen Con 2021 Brimstone Adventures preview and Kickstarter backer roundup. Who here is a backer of the Brimstone Adventures Kickstarter? All right, and for the people at home, let's hear applause so that we can hear. Just clap if you are in that. Yes, oh yeah. Wait, did you back it? I backed it. I backed it. Jason backed it too. All right, so now everybody knows. You can see, even if you're at home listening, as a side note for you guys, we're not able to stream live just because of the situation on the show floor, but we are recording this. We're going to put it up later for posterity and for everybody at home. So, first of all, let's just say thank you guys for supporting the Kickstarter and supporting Flying Frog and supporting Shadows of Brimstone. And this is the thing that makes this all go around and gets more and more content for this amazing game that we all love. And we are here today to give a bit of an update on development and show off some exciting new stuff. Even though we just did an update on the Kickstarter on Sunday, we actually have brand new information because we had China to overnight us a shipment of new miniature samples that arrived here at our hotel, and we stayed up all night gluing them together so that we could have them for you guys today. So they are that new.
To see.
To see, not to buy.
Or to own, since they're backers.
Or to own, that's right. It's an unannounced Kickstarter pickup.
No, it's not.
It's not. No,
don't
it's not.
even joke.
It's not. Brian Bosch, no. All right, so, but we put them together. We're going to show you guys. So first of all, maybe we should show what I've put out on the table here are the actual finished production plastics for the Gates of Valhalla adventure set. And we may have shown some or all of these before in different occasions, but just to show you now, you know, we've got the 4 heroes right here. There's the 3 allies that come with it. We did talk about the allies coming with it, didn't we?
I think we had talked about that.
Did we not? Okay, so, surprise, we're including the allies with the sets. So, we're able to work those in so that they could be included in every box set. So I think it'll make a more complete set if the allies are like packed in. And we did that both for the Vikings and also in Valley of the Serpent Kings. It comes with a set of Conquistador here, allies. Footmen.
Yeah.
Besides that, here Jason, you want to talk, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, in addition to including the allies in the main adventure set for Gates of Valhalla and for Valley of the Serpent King, we've also integrated the Targa Librarians as mini bosses. So originally those were a separate stretch goal, and we decided that the microphone might or might not work. We decided to actually find a way to get those into the main set, so they are actually part of the Gates of Valhalla main adventure set. And similarly, the carnivorous plants are now actually included and part of the Valley of the Serpent Kings adventure set. So that basically allowed us to do a lot more cool things with the campaign and the different threat cards, and have different mixes of things on threat cards in the actual sets.
So, do you want to just run through real quick everything that comes with the Valley of the Serpent Kings here? This is in the adventure set for Gates of Valhalla.
Yeah. So just real quick, I think most of you guys probably know this info, but I'll say it anyway. You get your 4 heroes. It's the Team Heroes Vikings, and you have the Jarl, who's the leader, the Berserker, the Huskarl, and the Raider. You also get your 3 Viking warrior allies. And then for enemies, you have 12 tiny Grimians, who are much nastier and more mean than their size would make you imagine. You also get 3 monstrous trolls. You get 3 Targa Librarians, which are mini bosses, and you also get 6 Centurions, who are like Targa robot foot soldiers. And then lastly, you have the giant Frost Giant, who's like the epic boss of the set. Now, there are epic threats for the Librarians as well, and there's an especially epic version called the Librarian Prime you can run into as a boss in Targa.
Do you want to tell them? Do you want to tell them about the different flavors of Librarians?
Sure, there's strawberry and
all right now.
So the Librarians, originally in the Kickstarter, the Librarian, I believe, was just a single mini boss. And during development, we basically decided what would be better than one mini boss, maybe 3. So we made 3 different variations on him. And so the Librarians actually have a small deck of Librarian Codex cards, and each one kits him out in a different role within the library of target. And so one of them has, you can see this this giant bladed sword, which is basically a key for him to log into the library. Another is basically got his laser. It's a moderator laser that he can use to blast unwanted visitors to the library. And then lastly, you have the one that has the navigation tools and the map.
It's an iPad 28.
All right.
With holographic display.
Yeah, so this guy can actually use his interface with the library to call up target pylons and archive towers and other reinforcements to help him out, and to shift the floor and the environment around you while you're fighting.
And so just to run down for the Valley of the Serpent Kings, which we are not showing here because it's actually on the table over there. We're doing Brimstone Adventures preview demos over the course of it, and right now there's a group over there playing in the Valley of the Serpent Kings. But that one will have the 4 Conquistador heroes, 3 footmen for the Conquistador allies. It also has 6 carnivorous plants. It has 6 Serpentmen archers, 3 Serpentmen temple guard, and then of course the giant Croxen beast.
And 6
Did I forget
drowned
anything?
dead. 6
Oh
drowned
yeah,
dead.
6 drowned dead, which are really cool. If you haven't seen them yet, they're basically undead conquistadors with seaweed hanging off of them. They're pretty fantastic.
All right.
Did you have a question? Do the temple guards have the ability to have 3 of them together as an epic threat?
Yeah. Yeah. So the temple guard are a little more analogous to the trolls or night terrors or something like that. So you could actually run into up to 3 of them just as a normal threat. Here. Valley of the Serpent Kings actually has a mini boss that's an upgraded version of a temple guard. It's the Temple Master, and he is basically a nastier temple guard that can come out to give you a hard time. One other thing is to give more enemy variety in these sets. There are a few enemies that are in the set that don't have miniatures, but instead have counters to represent them. One of those is in the Valley of the Serpent Kings. There's Creeping Shadows, which are basically, you get the enemy record sheet and counters for them, and it's the darkness has animated the shadows to come alive and come out to attack you. And one of the reasons they don't have minis is because they actually try to get into your space and attack you from within. And so you can get attacked by a lot of those guys. Also, there are tentacles as an enemy in the box, and we give you 12 counters for tentacles to use. And there's actually new threat cards that have up to 12 tentacles on them. So everybody's favorite tentacles are back with a serious vengeance in the adventure sets.
Why don't you hand this around so people can check it out?
Sure. I think we should probably keep moving at a pretty good clip.
We're going to try to keep moving at a pretty good pace, but we want people to actually get hands-on some of these minis so they can check out the actual production plastic. So yeah, we're going to be carefully passing around the Frost Giant so people can get their hands on it and check it out.
All right. So why don't we look at some of the other production plastics, yeah?
All right, so these are the ones that are brand new that we were assembling last night. So the glue is probably still wet. It's that new. And we have here the Fenris Wolves. These are the actual production plastic on the Fenris Wolves. And you're gonna see these guys are pretty enormous. They also have a very cool scenic base with a big precipice that they're standing at the edge of.
All right, so
here, why don't we, I'll take this, talk about the Fenris Wolves.
Yeah, so the Fenris Wolves are pretty cool. I brought along just a handful of enemy record sheets as well that people could potentially check out, after the event. But the Fenris Wolves I was going to highlight as one of the ones we're showing off here. And they're a pretty cool enemy. They actually have a lunging pounce where they leap across the board to get to you and only move the shortest distance to reach you. They have endurance and fear, and when they attack, they actually have a relentless attack. And this is potentially one of the most dangerous attacks in the game, because for each successful melee to hit roll they actually get +1 combat for that attack, and it can cascade. So They normally get 3 dice. If they roll and get 3 hits, they actually get 3 more dice at you. And if they get 2 more hits, they get 2 more dice at you. And so, normally it's fairly innocuous. They might get 3 or 4 hits on you, and they can be pretty dangerous. But we've definitely had a lot of times in playtesting where, Fenris Wolves will come out, and you're thinking, oh yeah, we can take these guys, we got them. And then one Fenris Wolf leaps at you and starts tearing into you for 17 or 18 hits because they just go crazy and cascade their hits over and over and over. So it makes for a really dynamic and exciting fight with the Fenris Wolves. You never really know what to expect.
All right, should we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
You want to bring out the Hellborn Marauders?
Yes, I will.
So this next group is the Hellborn Marauders, and again, we'll pass some of these around so you can see the figures. But these are basically a group of 6 enemy Hellborn Marauders. They're kind of chaotic barbarians from the east who have moved in, and they've got kind of a Conan vibe to them, where they're sweeping through the lands, kind of terrorizing, and they kind of worship the darkness. And so they actually have some pretty cool abilities as well. They get +1 combat for every adjacent hero, so they like to just wade into your heroes and just hack and slash left and right. Their 6s actually count as 3 hits, so they kind of get massive strikes as they attack you. They also have a new ability called Retribution. Retribution 2, where whenever you assign a hit to this enemy, it actually deals 2 basic hits back to you. So basic hits, of course, just do 1 damage, but the more you kind of pile on the hits, the more they kind of throw little splash hits back at you. So the Hellborn Marauders can be pretty deadly as they raid the Norse lands looking for, to steal your valuable goods. All right, so the Hellbears. So the Hellbear, I think, was originally a large size enemy, and when we were working on this guy, he actually ended up becoming bigger and bigger and bigger until now he is actually an XL. And you can see he's on a pretty massive base, the Hellbear, and you get a pack of 3 of this guy. So you actually can fight. Normally you can fight usually just like 1 of these guys or a couple of them if you're unlucky, but there is also an epic threat where 3 of them come out and they can kind of tear you to pieces because they're so giant. But it's the first, I believe the first set we've had that's 3 XLs in 1 pack. And so they're pretty nasty. They have terror, they have a ferocious attack where they move through other models and retarget every turn. And then they actually get their full combat against every adjacent hero. So they move in to try to hack and slash everybody around them. They also have terrifying claws, they're tough, and they have a new thing called Monstrous Rage, where every time you assign a hit to a Hellbear, they actually heal 1 wound before you resolve the hit. So the more hits you pour on them, whether they do damage or not, the Hellbears start getting angrier and angrier at you as they come after you. So we can pass around the Hellbear, check him out. And I really love the way the Hellbear models turned out. They're so big and menacing. No large base would have contained these guys. They needed to be on an XL base. The next enemy group we have here is the Dragar. And these guys are basically undead Vikings that have risen up from their graves to haunt the living and to give everybody a hard time. And these guys actually have a few different abilities that are pretty cool. As undead, of course, they have fear and a really high defense, but they also have Shields of the Dead, which means that they actually always count as being in cover 4+. So whenever you throw attacks at these guys, 50% of the time they just knock it right out of their way. Whether it's a ranged attack or a melee attack, they have that cover 4+ for their big shields. They also have an ability called Essence Leech, which taps into kind of that Viking mythology about the Dragar, where heroes adjacent to Dragar can't recover ability tokens or grit because they're leeching away your essence. So those Vikings can't get their rage back when they're fighting Dragar up close and personal, and you can't get those grit back either. So you gotta kind of back away, collect yourselves, and then charge in to try to take them down. They also have an ability called Feeds on Darkness, where their to hit rolls of 6+ do extra damage that's equal to the number of corruption and mutations that you currently have. So the more mutated you are, the more corrupted you are, the more these guys will feed on the darkness that you're exuding and throw that back at you. So the Dragar models turned out really cool. You can see their tattered clothes and their kind of rusted, corroded armor. Their shields that have big chips and nicks out of. And their swords and axes, of course, that, did good for them in life, and now in death, their kind of corrupted forms can hack down their fellow Viking warriors that still live.
All right, what's up next?
So these next guys here are the Trun Gladiators, and if you're a fan of the Trun that we already have for the Targa Plateau as enemies, these guys are basically kind of heftier gladiator type versions of the Trun. They're all about getting in your face and cutting you down with their Trun gladiuses, and they've kind of pulled off most of their armor so they can get up and be more maneuverable and leap around the board to hack and slash you with their swords. So these are some of the toughest warriors of the Trun. Specifically, give up their guns to fight up close and get pelts from enemies that they cut down in hand-to-hand combat. So this next group of enemies we have are the Feljagor Slayers. And these guys are part of a new faction within the Norselands, which is Thunderforged. And the idea is that they are basically forged in the underworld and are kind of the emissaries that are going to bring about Ragnarok and the end of the world. And so they're forged in the underworld with lightning and thunder, and they're sent up to the surface world to try and tear down the human Midgard and the gods themselves. And so you can see here with this set, you actually get 2 Feljagor that have their axes. The third one has his axe, but he also has his fell horn. And one of the cool things about these guys is that they actually have this fell horn in the group, and they blow the horn to enrage the other enemies. So they actually give rage tokens to enemies. Normally Vikings use rage tokens against enemies, but these guys enrage the enemies, and then with those rage tokens, any enemy that's with them basically can use that to get extra attack power or actually to prevent incoming damage that they would take.
So there's another Titan.
It does seem like they would need some sort of Titan or something to help them out, but I don't know. I mean, who knows what kind of thing might happen. So these guys are Feljagor Slayers, and when we were working on these, we thought, you know what? It would be really cool to have a second version of these guys that basically is a slightly more elite, slightly more up close and personal type group that are all about dueling and sword fighting. So these guys are the Feljagor Deathbringers. They have giant hell swords that they can try to slice allies and heroes in half if they get the opportunity. And you can see they've got a version of the Fellhorn that's a little bit bigger and has these big dragon horns and a big dragon head on the end of the Fellhorn. So it's kind of supercharged. And these guys, I believe, were part of the Pledge Manager, and they actually
just introduced in the Pledge
they were introduced in the Pledge Manager for the Kickstarter, and they have their own mission for their Deathbringer, special goals. All right, so I'm going to pass around some of these guys. Here's a couple of the Feljagor Slayers.
Do you know for retail, are those going to be 2 packs or all the Feljagor in one?
Yeah, so the Feljagor Slayers are an enemy pack on their own. And the Feljagor Deathbringers, I'm not sure, are those...
They'd be a separate enemy pack.
They would be a separate enemy pack, and I think that because they have a mission, I believe that they...
It's probably going to be like the Thunder Warriors.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Thunder Warriors, where...
Not quite a deluxe enemy pack.
Not quite a deluxe enemy pack, but that they have a little bit extra going on. And they have a sprue of conversion pieces to give them different helmets, the swords, the special horn, and all of that aspect to it. And you can see, like these guys here, he's got his axe plunged into the ground, or the sword plunged into the ground. He's got his sword and sort of a curled hand off to the side. So I can pass these guys around as well, I guess.
And we did talk about...
Yeah, why don't you grab them out?
Oh, careful, you don't have that much room here. Go ahead.
Got it? All right. Yeah, you think so? Thunderforged Hounds. Well, they could totally work with the Fenris Wolves as well.
Just something to think about.
Sure. I'll also point out that earlier we talked about the Hellbears and the Hellborn Marauders. Those are both part of a different faction in the Norselands, which is Hellborn. And so they have that key word, and they often have abilities that kind of help each other out. Ooh, wouldn't you like to know?
Let's talk about the Thunderforged Titan.
All right, so the Thunderforged Titan. So this is probably the biggest single model that we've ever made, the Thunderforged Titan. And I believe he has a jingle.
Thunderforged Titan. We've talked a lot about how it would be great to do a throwback commercial, you know, those ones for like Star Wars action figures in the 80s where they have the kids playing and they've got the pile of toilet paper tubes piled up and then they drive the tank through it or something, and we were picturing the Thunderforged Titan comes crashing through knocks all the toilet paper tubes aside, and it says Thunderforged Titan. Thunderforged Titan comes with all you see here. Vikings not included. Here you go.
All right, so I think we don't want to run out of time, so we got to probably
want to
keep
talk
going.
about what the Thunderforged Titan does. Any of his? You want to give him a nugget, a tidbit of Thunderforged Titan?
A little nugget about the Thunderforged Titan. Well, I can tell you this: you can see the size of his hammer there is bigger than a human, and he actually has the ability to smash guys flat. So you definitely don't want to be on the receiving end of that and get crushed by the hammer.
Here's a human model next to the hammer head.
I guess it depends on how hardcore you're playing and if you're a hero or an ally. But he also can swing that hammer to actually knock you around and throw you across the board. So it doesn't always knock you, squash you flat. Sometimes it just throws you around. All right, so continuing on here, we have the Crimson Hand Dark Acolytes. And you can see that these guys mean business. It's a new addition to the Crimson Hand faction, Crimson Hand theme. And these guys specifically are acolytes that go out and collect up artifacts and gather up scrolls and ancient relics. And they have a deck of arcane magic that they wield, where they can cast spells at the heroes. And they basically use those artifacts and relics and scrolls that they've found to dish out magical attacks against the heroes. And these figures turned out really cool. You've got the one pose that's holding up a scroll and charging forward with his dagger outstretched. And the other one you can see actually has a big burning torch in a metal torch brand. Brazier, sure. So these guys turned out pretty cool. I can pass these guys around. Crimson Hand Dark Acolytes. So one of the other things that does come with the Gates of Valhalla Adventures set is an enemy record sheet and the rules for and threat cards for archive towers. So in the adventure set, these are basically counters, much like the Targa pylons from City of the Ancients, but they're basically towers that are built within the Targa library, and they're pretty cool because they cascade lightning between one another and then fire it off as a big blast. And so the more towers that are in close proximity to each other when they attack you, give them an extra bonus to their ranged attack against you. So you have to kind of rush up and try to take out the towers along the edges before you go after the ones in the middle. Otherwise you're going to find yourself getting fried by fully charged archive towers. Did somebody lose a wing?
Nope.
Oh, okay, good. And these archive tower models actually come as part of the Archive Guardian set. So the Archive Guardian is a new variant on the Targa Guardian model, and you can see he's basically designed to defend the library, to come awake and defend the Targa library against intruders. You can see he's got a different head that's kind of extended out from his body, and he also has two of his big kind of power glove arms replaced with some giant cannons, a big Gauss cannon and an archive cannon. What was that?
I was just going to show it close up.
Oh yeah, sure. The Cryo Cannon, yes, it is indeed.
I love
Yes.
I love this model. Like the head extends out much further, and it has all these tubes going out to it. It puts me in the mind of like Alien or something. Pretty fantastic.
It's got a little bit of a Fifth Element aspect to it as well.
Yeah, I can see that. There you go.
All right, the Archive Guardian.
And I'll show the archive towers up close as well.
There you go. So one thing that I'm not sure we've talked too much about with the Gates of Valhalla set is that when you're going into the Targa library and having adventures there, there's a sinister intelligence that runs the library, this sort of artificial intelligence, and the target librarian guys that we showed you earlier are kind of avatars for this sinister intelligence. So they basically kind of do his bidding, and he puts himself into them to fight you on the board. And one of the things that's kind of exciting about the set is that as you explore the library and you start learning about its secrets, the library is actually learning about you as well. So when you're spending time in the library, it starts getting archive markers on the depth track, and they start building up and building up. And at the end of the adventure, if you have too many archive markers on the depth track, they're removed and turned into library knowledge that goes on your campaign log, and it means forever forward the library gets bonuses against you whenever you're exploring there. So it's basically learning about you and your fighting tactics, and then making the centurions and the librarians and the guardian and all these guys better fighters against you when you come and intrude in the library again in the future.
So I should just say that's one way to look at it, but I mean, this is their world, right? Our cowboys and Vikings are just like coming through, intruding.
Manifest this.
Sinister intelligence? Come on, man.
Sinister intelligence.
It's the library. We're only there to win.
But you're too loud.
That's
right. Right, you just need to find a library card and you're good to go.
Library card and like,
All right, let's talk about these social media stretch goals.
Yeah, so these next guys, two enemy groups were both part of the social media stretch goals we did during the campaign. And the first group we have here are the Ceterisravagers. And you may recognize these from a different game, Conquest of Planet Earth. The Ceteris Kitewings were one of the aliens that you could play. And they were defined by the fact that they could fly on their pterodactyl-like wings and descend on enemies and drop in behind you and get kind of a surprise attack and kind of rake you with fire with their energy rifles. And these guys are no different. This is the Shadows of Brimstone version of those Ceteris Kitewings from Conquest of Planet Earth. And so you can see these guys are actually fairly posable. They've got heads on swivels that you can move around, look in different directions, and you can place the wings in independently, I believe, right?
Yep, independent wings that can be posed wherever. They're on ball joints.
Yeah, so you can kind of pose these guys around, but this is an enemy that actually has snap fire, and so they try to move in, attack you with their guns, and then kind of back away, do some hand-to-hand and then back away so they can attack you with their guns at the start of the next action as well. Kind of like the Wasteland Scavengers from the Blasted Wastes. So, the Ceterisravagers.
So these next ones are actually my favorite of the new models. They turned out so great. They're very delicate and beautiful. The poses are so organic and graceful. And they're just my favorite of the new models that we just received samples of. These are the Feathered Serpents, and they're the other one in the social media stretch goals.
Yeah.
I'll show some close-ups while Jason talks about it. Here you go.
Yeah. So these guys are the Feathered Serpents of Kotak. And you may recognize, if you're especially nerdy about Brimstone, you may recognize the name Kotak from the Amulet of Kotak, which is one of the artifacts that was in the original core sets. But the idea is that it's this ancient deity that actually can send out these waves of feathered serpents. And one of the things that amulet does for you when you get that artifact is that it helps prevent you from dying, right? It prevents damage. And so these Feathered Serpents of Kotak actually have a built-in ability that's like that. So every time you would potentially kill them, they have a chance to just instantly pop back up and regenerate. So you might have to kill them over and over to try to actually get them to stay down because they've got this protection of Kotak. But yeah, exactly, XP farming. But yeah, these models turned out fantastic. The poses and the delicate nature of the wings, I think, are a really cool opportunity for people that do like to paint their figures to really go to town with it. All right, so what is the next thing we have in there? So we have a lot of these models to show, so hopefully we're doing an okay job of getting a little bit of information, but also showing off all the cool stuff that we brought. What do you got?
So we've shown a lot of Targa stuff. Let's go Jargono.
Yeah. Well, the Feathered Serpents kind of kicked off the Jargono trend here. So here we have the Venom Strike Ballista. and you can see it's got its 2 Serpentmen crew. They're a slightly different breed of Serpentman. They've got a big crest on their head. They're a little bit more lean and agile because they need to be able to move their Ballista around over rough terrain and slither amongst the trees and branches. But the Venom Strike Ballista is basically giant ballista bolts that are dipped in poisonous venoms from the swamps of Jargono, and they launch these bolts across the board and can potentially skewer multiple characters in a row when they fire. And of course, poisoning each character along the way, because getting run through with a giant bolt isn't bad enough. It's got to be insult to injury and poison you as well. But this is a really intricate and cool model as well, and I really love the way the head, the kind of serpent head on the front of the ballista turned out, where the bolt fires out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the serpent.
Are you going to hand that around?
Yeah, I'm going to pass this around. Be extra careful with the Serpentman ballista. It could be a little bit delicate. But these are all the final production plastics, so this is what the real deal looks like when you get it. Do you have the frames? Did I pull the frames out?
Oh no.
I have.
Where are they?
I'll have to go look.
All right.
You want to talk about? Is there anything else in there? Or are we good on that,
well,
that
we're
one?
gonna, I think, just talk about this next.
All right.
Why don't
you show this guy and talk about it for a second?
All right. I'm gonna actually show this one. So everything we've shown so far is actually a production plastic. These are called T-end samples, meaning that they've gone through several iterations. They start with like T1. If there's changes that need to be done, it goes to T2 and so on. These are T-end, where they should be the final production plastics and be exactly what you guys get to achieve your Brimstone Adventures Kickstarter. However, this is a 3D print of the Serpent King on Katari Beast, and actually this has changed a little bit since we did this print. Now the base actually has a little more detail. The wings have a little more detail. We did this guy so that we would get a sense of scale and make sure that it was right. Until you get it, when you just see it on a screen, you can never really tell. Even if you bring in guys, it's very hard. You need to have it in hand and see it on the table, see how it fits on the board and all that. So we use this as a scale thing, and then we have already, finished development on this, finished the final cut down and everything, and it's already been turned in, and they're tooling the mold for this one. So this isn't one that we have plastic samples of yet. It's being tooled still. But we thought we'd bring the 3D print so you guys could check it out and see all the detail and the size of it. Obviously, he is mammoth. And if you have a valley of the Serpent Kings, you better have a Serpent King, and he better deliver.
That's true. And he can deliver.
Here, do you want to talk about the Serpent King?
So the Serpent King, I can give you just a little bit of information on. He basically leads armies of Serpentmen into battle. And you can fight against a generalized Serpent King. There's also a legendary Serpent King for each of the different Serpentmen tribes. And so each one is named, and he's got special abilities and bonuses, and it kind of synergizes with the Serpentmen tribe card that goes along with that tribe. There are no Serpent Queens yet. No Serpent Queens yet. But how do you know the Serpentman King doesn't lay eggs? Who knows? Go ahead. He does actually have a deck.
Where did you hear that?
He does actually have a deck of cards where he gives out kind of battlefield orders, a little bit similar to the Traderan Lieutenants, but it's basically for flying high above battlefields in Jargono and having these big sweeping formation attacks of Serpentmen tribes fighting one another, or of course fighting other intruders that find their way into the swamps of Jargono. Yeah, so that's true. He does have a deck of cards where he can buff all the other enemies and kind of give them orders for the turn. He also flies around above and does swooping attacks where he'll fly down and do kind of a flyby attack to give you a hard time. And the beast itself is very vicious, in addition to the attacks of the Serpent King. So we also have here another production plastic piece, which is the Traderan Mark II's Lightning Scout Tank. Oh man. I seem to recall some people saying they were interested in a Traderan tank some time ago. And so, hopefully this delivers and people are excited about it. One of the things that's really cool about the tank is that it actually has different tank weapons of war, and so when you fight him, you actually draw to see which weapons it's armed with. And so it's got different sponson weapons that it can have to attack you. It's got a different main cannon, and it's also got different side guns on the side of it there. And so there's a lot of variation in when you're fighting this guy. It also is kind of slow moving and lumbering, but it's extremely heavily armored. And so you actually get bonuses for trying to get around on the sides or get around behind it to try to do damage to it and to try to find its weak points. Speaking of weak points, one of the cool things about fighting the tank is that it actually has kind of technical areas that you attack when you get critical hits. It's immune to critical hits, but your critical hits allow you to target a specific area of the tank that you want to try to damage, which will have negative impacts on the tank's ability to fight you back. Yeah.
Heavily armored for Western or Viking weapons. If it's against another a scout tank.
That's true. That's true. If it's fighting other heavy weapons of the Tradarans, they might have a pretty good chance of punching through. But of course, cowboys don't tend to have Tradaran tanks on their side, so they're going to be in trouble. Or Vikings, or conquistadors, or whoever you may be trying to fight this with.
I don't think it's cannonballs or anything like that.
It'll probably make a small dent. So you can see here on the frames of the tank, it actually feels a little bit like a model kit. You got the, but we also tried to make sure that it's pretty easy to put together. So even though it's got a lot of little pieces, they do fit together pretty cleanly, and you can see like all of the treads are two-part for the two sides with the treads. So it's not too bad.
I've definitely put together some tank model kits where the treads are like individual pieces that you have to put on. So our first thing right out of the gate was we're not doing that. But you can see it's across two different sprues. They're actually pretty large, so this is going to be a pretty big box when it comes out in retail. But on this sprue here, we actually have the insignia, and I don't know if Jason mentioned it, but we actually have the insignia for all the 6 Tradaran factions, and we were able to put on a 7th insignia for the Tradaran monarchy. And if you're not familiar, the Tradaran monarchy was something it's a new mission pack that we announced in the Pledge Manager that you could get in the Pledge Manager, but it will be available to retail later.
Yeah, so I can pass this around.
We're going to pass the tank around, and we're going to watch you closely. Do not walk away with the tank.
Another note on the tank, which is pretty cool, is the side sponsons are designed so even after it's put together, they do rotate, and so they can aim at your heroes if you're in the right area. Here you go.
The tank turned out so cool, you guys. It really, really did.
If you want, we can pass some of these sprues around.
Are we going to pass the sprue around?
Yeah.
All right.
Here, you want to check?
Be careful. One of the things we really wanted to do was be able to have actual backers touch actual plastic so that you guys can see. I mean, there's nothing like that. You can look at 3D prints, you can look at pictures online, but when you're holding the plastics in your hand, it just feels good.
All right. So do you want to pack some of these guys back down in that box? And,
ultimately, I figured we'd have them up here for people to look at.
Oh, sure, that makes sense.
I was kind of keeping out the new stuff.
Okay, well, why don't I grab the next boxes up the front one there?
All right.
All right.
We've moved on from production samples.
Yeah. So that was most of the final production plastics that we brought to show off, but we do have some more 3D prints of things that I'm not sure anybody has seen yet. I don't think so.
These are molds that are still being tooled right now in China.
Yeah, these are the molds that are still, they don't have the final production samples done yet for us, but you can see that these are 3D prints, and the molds are going to be done soon with the tooling. And so these guys are the Harvester Drill Team. So this is a new version of Harvesters. You may know Harvesters from the original Shadows of Brimstone Kickstarter. They're basically aliens from another dimension that have created these big kind of diving suits where they dive into other dimensions to go around and try to harvest the ore and the resources they need to keep their civilization going. And they kind of view all other dimensions and all other worlds as theirs for the taking. They just need to dive in and go drill it out and take it. So if you get in their way, they'll happily knock you aside so that they can get their stuff in there and steal it.
And they have different arms.
Yeah, one of the things that's really cool about the Tradaran the Harvester Drill Team is that they actually have different weapon arms. And so you can see that this one that I'm holding up here has a drill arm and a big piston arm. This one over here
double claws.
has double claws. And so each of these models actually comes with these different arm choices that you can decide how you want your drill team to look. So you can.
There's actually a fourth option.
There is
to not put in.
There is a fourth option, which is if you don't put anything in, it looks basically kind of like a truncated arm cannon for firing bolts. Not to the point that you would need to be able to change them mid-game, but the idea is that they're kind of worked into their stats and abilities that they have these different weapons amongst the group. So that way it doesn't limit how you want to make your guys look, but gives you some of that cool flavor and theme of having this assortment of weapons to terrorize the heroes. Right, this is not a drill, exactly.
That is bad.
Some more.
Yeah, so these Tredaran drill team, I'm sorry, I keep saying Tredaran, these Harvester drill team guys actually do come with threat cards for every other world in the game that's been released so far. That includes the Forest of the Dead and the Belly of the Beast and all of that kind of stuff as well. All right, so this next group of enemies we have here are the Lumia Vampires. And these guys have a little bit of a sort of Eastern European vibe to them, where their campfire stories are told about the horrors of the Lumia vampires that come out of the woods and steal men off into the shadowy trees and feed on them. And these guys have some pretty cool abilities. One of which is when they're killed, they actually drop a cursed body in the space, and they have a chance of continually getting back up until you can defeat them again and again. So they have a chance to rise back up. It's hard to keep them down until you can defeat the group. But they are vampires, so they do feed on you as well. And they are part of the Spanish fort enemies. Of course, they've got normal threats, so you can fight them in any of the normal Earth-based worlds. But the theme is for the Spanish fort.
We only have one of these prints?
We do only have one print for the next one.
All right.
So this next one here is
Shadow Lurker.
The Shadow Lurker, and these guys are in a group of 3. We only have one 3D print with us right now, but they have some pretty cool posability. Their head is on a swivel, and their waist is on a swivel, so you can kind of decide how you want them posed and how they're going to come at you. And these guys are pretty cool. They're actually themed for the normal worlds, but also the derelict ship. And so it's a cool new derelict ship enemy. They've got threats for a couple different other worlds, but derelict ship is one of them. And they basically come out of the shadows and get extra combat ability based on where the darkness is on the track and kind of how far things have progressed. So the Shadow Lurkers are pretty nasty and scary enemies. And I can pass this guy around as well. He is also a 3D print, so he's a little fragile, but he should be okay. Yeah, no one expects the Dread Inquisitors. So these guys are also part of the Crimson Hand, and they are part of the Spanish Fort and Conquistador theme as well. The Dread Inquisitors have big man catchers, so they can try to grab a hold of you, and they do damage based on what their hit roll is, very similar to the man catcher weapons of the flesh drones that the Flesh Doctor comes with. But they also, you can tell they have the big gas masks, kind of Plague Doctor masks, and that's because these guys unleash vile plagues on you. So you may know Vile Plagues from the On Marauder set from Forbidden Fortress. These guys actually also have access to Vile Plagues, and they come with a new deck of Vile Plagues that can be used on its own or mixed with the ones from the On Marauder set. So it gives you extra compatibility with your existing stuff as well. But that is the Dread Inquisitors of the Crimson Hand. All right. Well, the Acolytes, they kind of serve different roles amongst the Crimson Hand. If an Inquisitor comes out, he's just going to knock both of them around. So, but the Dread Inquisitors, they're kind of like the secret police amongst the Crimson Hand. So we have here some 3D prints of one of the new hero classes. This is actually the Ulfsark Skinwalker hero class for the Norse theme, the Viking theme. And you can see that the Ulfsark Skinwalker is basically kind of a shamanistic character that lives out in the woods in a cabin on their own, but occasionally they'll be called in to help out with a group of heroes that are on an especially deadly saga. And so this is a character that can voluntarily shapeshift into a werewolf. And so you can see normally they've got a big kind of magically imbued wolf pelt that they wear around. They also carry a shield and an axe. And during combat, they can transform into this large-size skinwalker werewolf. And they get to keep using the shield because they've got a little bit more ability to manipulate items while a werewolf. But they don't get to use the axe, so they have to plant that in the ground and then break out their big claws to kind of slash at enemies and kind of pounce on enemies. So it's kind of cool having a hero that can voluntarily turn into a werewolf and not just have a werewolf's curse that breaks out every now and then. All right, we also have here these guys. These are the Norse Dwarves, the Norse Dwarf hero class. And you can see it's basically a mythical hero class, kind of like the Valkyrie is keyword myth. The Norse Dwarves are also keyword myth. And the idea is that they live in the mountains. They're really good at forging and creating runes and creating items. And they fight with a big rune hammer that they can smash enemies with. You can see one has the big double-handed hammer, the other one has a smaller forging hammer and a pair of pliers there. But they're really good at hunting down gold, getting resources, and actually forging runes onto items for your heroes and for themselves. So those are the Norse Dwarf heroes.
Unfortunately, we did not bring prints for the other new heroes, so we don't have those to show, but they're coming along. The models are done.
The Blood Priestess, the Jaguar Warrior.
Blood Priestess, Jaguar Warrior. Is that it? Yeah, I think that's the ones.
Yeah, so we did not show off these yet.
All right, so these are ones where these might still be warm from being 3D printed so recently, because these are hot off the press. These are the first time we're ever showing these. We've never been shown renders of these. These are the alt genders of the Conquistadors. And these models turned out so cool. These are the Conquistador heroes from Valley of the Serpent King. These are the alt genders of them. So I'll show them close up on camera, and then, these are pretty delicate, so we probably won't pass them around, but you can come up afterward and see them. I don't know, is there anything to talk about these?
No, they just look really cool.
Why don't you go through them one at a time and I'll show them on screen.
Sure, so the Conquistador, the types of Conquistador that you can play are the El Capitan. You can see the female El Capitan here has her feather-plumed helmet under one arm and is in kind of a fighting pose, ready to strike with her Spanish sword. The next one there is the male version of the Duelist. And you can see he's got one foot up on a rock and ready to duel and deflect blows, parry and thrust with his blades, his dueling blades. So that's the male Duelist.
Great pose.
The next one there is the female Explorer. You can see that she's got her spyglass in one hand and a sword in the other. Ready to explore the jungles of Jargono, the swamps and the temples. And lastly, we have the female soldier who has the big heavy crossbow and heavy armor and is ready to fill the Serpent Men full of steel bolts to punch right through their armor.
Yeah. All right, so you guys know that we love surprises. So we always are torn between how much to surprise people in the moment and how much to surprise people in advance. And we decided to take one of our big surprises in the moment from Dice Fest. And because we're announcing right now.
I mentioned Dice Fest.
I'm going to say, well, we're announcing right now we're not doing in-person Dice Fest this year because of the pandemic and the fact that we usually hold Dice Fest we rent a school that we do it in. It just seemed like it was probably not the year for it. So we're going to return to in-person Dice Fest next year, but we're going to do Dice Fest online. It's going to be October 22nd through the 24th, and we've decided to add a day. So it's actually going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, October 22nd through the 24th. It's going to be online. We're going to have a massive sale associated with it, lots of online games to play, things like this, events and previews and whatever.
Yeah, live streams.
Live streams, yeah. But we're also going to have two brand new, preview versions of, full retail versions of, but early new enemy kits for Shadows of Brimstone. And we're going to show them to you right now. We don't have the models back from China yet, but we actually do have the retail packaging.
And 3D prints.
And some 3D prints to show.
All right.
All right. First off, the Coffin Breakers. These guys are so cool. We wanted to do stuff that's returned to the Old West, very, very Old West. These guys are so in theme for kind of a supernatural, mysterious Old West. The Coffin Breakers are actually corpses that have reanimated, come back to life, and erupted from their graves, and they're using the lids of their coffins as shields. And then they grab up shovels and pickaxes that are in the graveyard, and they're wielding those as weapons. And this is actually one of the coolest sprues that we've ever put together, like model kits, because they have a row of different right arms and a row of different left arms and a row of heads, and they all mix and match with the different bodies. So they're totally posable and totally, you know, just filled with variety. 6. And actually this is the retail packaging, so you can check it out, and they're painted on the back. So why don't we show it to the camera real quick, and then we'll pass it around. Do you want to talk a little bit about what they do, Jason?
Sure. You know, if you want, you can grab out the enemy record sheets. They're down there in the box.
Yeah.
So we can show you the enemy record sheets for these guys as well. The Coffin Breakers are pretty cool. They have fear. They have grave shovels where they can ignore armor, and they make it so that heroes can't reroll their defense rolls against the grave shovels. So even if you have grit or some defense reroll abilities, the grave shovels will cut right through it. They also have coffin shields where they're immune to critical hits from ranged attacks, and they have a cover 4+ save against explosives. So basically they can shield themselves from dynamite or bombs that you might throw at them. They also have a cool ability called Unearth, where at the start of each of their turns they roll on this little chart and get a special bonus for the turn. So you never know exactly what they're going to do. Are they going to form up and create a shield wall? Are they going to unleash their dead rage against you? Are they going to coffin smash you? They got a lot of different abilities they can do, and it changes from turn to turn. So you guys can take a look at this as well. The only thing I'd ask is that you not take any photographs of the enemy record sheet. You can just abide by that. I would appreciate it. So you can check out the models. They're a little bit fragile as 3D prints to pass around, but we can pass around the Coffin Breaker box so you guys can check it out. Yeah, they've got 2 different bodies, but the arms are in ball sockets, so you can actually pose the arms however you want. And the head is also interchangeable, and you can pose it in different directions. And there's adornment for the shields, whether it's a wooden cross that goes on the shield or an iron ring with a ribbon. There's a lot of cool posability to these guys. I know, these guys are full-on skeletons. There's no zombie meat on these guys. Well, that's the great thing about Brimstone is it's a sandbox. You can totally make them one of the options.
So let's do the other one. You have the other box?
I do. Sure.
All right. So yeah, I am super excited about the Coffin Breakers. They're one of the coolest sets that we've done in the history of the game. All right, Jason is moving them to one side here, and he's going to reveal the other one. Now, both these we're going to have for sale at Dice Fest Online in the full-on retail packaging and everything, and then these will be released for retail sometime in 2022. All right, the other one is the newest addition to the Scafford family, the Scafford Highwaymen. So these guys are specifically bandits that rob coaches and trains. Hell trains. No, I'm just kidding.
Reset the clock!
Reset the clock! All right, so yeah, the Scafford Highwaymen, these guys are so cool. They're in these giant duster trench coats. They've got the typical Scafford mutations. And shotguns. They've got big bags of loot in their tentacle arms and their grubby tentacle arms. Did you want to talk about? I can get their sheet out.
Enemy record sheet there. We can show that off. Show off the enemy record sheet for these guys as well, and the models for that matter. So, well, you never know. We'll have to wait and see. So the Scafford Highwaymen are pretty cool. They have assault, so they try to close in, fire their shotguns at you, and then also whack you over the head with their tentacle arms. They also have a standard ability called Scafford Gang, which basically just means, he's fine, basically just means that they count as Scafford Gang. So for things like hideous mutations or Scafford Lieutenant abilities, things like that. These guys count as Scafford Gang, so they would get all of the buffs that the Scafford Gang leaders would give to Scafford Gang models. They also have an ability called Run and Gun, when making a ranged attack, they get to roll their full shots against the target and every other hero adjacent to the target. So they blast away with their shotgun. If the heroes stand too close together, they're all going to get sprayed with the shotgun blasts. They're also robbers, so a hero loses 5 gold for every wound they take from their combat hits. So they're basically picking your pocket with their tentacles as they're bashing you over the head. They have Heavy Duster, so they have Armor 5+, and they have Slithering Tentacles 1, which is a new ability. It's, unless you kill the model, they heal 1 wound at the end of every attack that damaged it, or at least had 1 hit assigned to it. So when you hit them at all, they get to heal a little bit because they're slithering out of the way of your attacks. So it makes them really slippery and really hard to hit. And of course, they have a lot of combat, but with their shotguns, they can do double duty, assaulting you, slapping you with their tentacles, and also shooting you with their shotguns. So we can pass this around. You can see the Scafford Highwaymen. Yeah, they're basically like the elite Scafford gang that ride down out of the hills to attack stagecoaches and trains and steal the loot to keep the gang going from big score to big score.
All right, well, thank you guys all for coming out. Like I said, please come on up and take a look at the miniatures and check out these guys close up. They're fantastic. We also have some Gates of Valhalla promo posters, and I'll get some pens, and if you want, we can sign them. Otherwise, you can take them unsigned. Thank you guys all for coming out.
Yeah.
Thanks for supporting the Kickstarter. We will see you guys at Dice Fest, October 22nd through the 24th at Dice Fest online.
Also, guys,
come on up.
yeah.